Hey everyone, it's James Reeves with TFBTV. Welcome back to part 2 of the top 10 concealed carry handguns. As I said, it's been 3 years since I did my top 5 concealed carry handgun list, and it's time to update it because there have been a lot of new models that have come out, and there have been a lot of old models that have been improved upon. So it was time to shuffle the list around. And in fact, there were so many good guns that have been released in the past 3 years, so many that were already on the market and so many that have been improved. I couldn't just do a top 5, and I had to do a top 10. So if you want to check out last week's video, it covers number 6 through number 10 or 11, depending on how you look at it. Today, we're going to go through numbers 1 through 5. So last week, we had 3 or 4 single stack 380s on the list, depending on how you want to look at it, a single stack 9mm, and a revolver. This week, we're gonna step things up a little bit. We're gonna have some larger calibers and some larger frames. We're gonna go ahead and kick this list off with number 5 and number 4 at the same time. These are 2 guns from the same manufacturer. They've got a lot of the same features, a lot of the same manufacturing processes, same manual of arms. They're very similar in a lot of ways, and so my comments are going to apply to both of them. That is number 5, the Smith & Wesson Shield 9 2.0, and number 4, the Smith & Wesson M&P Compact 9 2.0. The 2.0 versions didn't exist when I made the top 5 concealed carry guns 3 years ago, but they're out now. And what do they give you? You get a lot better texture versus the 1.0 version of these guns. I like this new skateboard type texture better than the old wrinkled texture from the 1.0 guns. You also get a better trigger that's about a pound lighter. You're looking at a 5.5 to a 6.5 pound pull. That's a lot lighter and a lot crisper. You also get very tiny slide serrations up at the front of these M&Ps, which make them more appealing to some people. Now with the M&P series, you're getting a gun that's reliable. You're getting a gun that's virtually rust-proof by virtue of the Armor Night finish. Armor Night is a form of melanite that Smith & Wesson applies to the M&Ps, and it gives it a Rockwell hardness of 68. In fact, I posted a picture on TFB earlier this year where an officer was shot while he was carrying his M&P, and the bullet went through his holster into his M&P, and it didn't even put a ding on his M&P. So that's a pretty hard stainless slide with this melanite coating. Very impressive. Now let's talk about the difference between the two. With the Shield, you're getting an ultra compact single stack 9mm. That's a 7+1. So it holds one more round than the competition, say the Glock 43, which is a 6+1 gun, or the Car PM9, which is a 6+1 gun, but it's going to be slightly larger. A lot of people love the Smith & Wesson M&P Shields, and I think the 2.0 editions are fantastic for this gun. Very small, very easy to conceal. Many people prefer the 7+1 frame that's a little bit larger, allows you to get a full grip on it, and you don't have to worry about dangling a pinky. But I want to say a little bit more about the M&P Compact 2.0. Now, the Compact 1.0, I'm pretty sure was on my list from 3 years ago, but the 2.0 is a whole different animal. The 1.0, that is the M&P Compact 1.0, was more Glock 26 size, and what I liked about it is it was roughly the same size as the Glock 26, but it held 2 additional rounds. You were looking at 12+1 in that variant versus 10+1 with the 26. Well, here, Smith & Wesson finally came out with a pistol to compete directly with the Glock 19, which is probably the most popular handgun of all time. It makes you wonder what took them so long. But I reviewed the M&P 2.0 very favorably against the Glock 19, and while I am a Glock guy, I think the M&P 2.0 is fantastic, and I couldn't fault somebody for choosing either one over the other. If you're a Glock person, you want the Glock 19, great. If you like the Smith & Wesson M&P 9 Compact 2.0 better, good for you. They're both fantastic guns. I happen to really like the grip texture again, and I happen to like the trigger on the M&P 2.0 Compact much better. So good news if you guys like the M&P series, but you wanted something closer to a Glock 19 in size and capacity. It's a 15+1 in 9mm. Now, if you didn't see this coming, you don't watch enough TFBTV. Number 3 is the Glock 19, but the Generation 5. Now, the Glock 19 has for forever been one of the best choices for concealed carry, especially if you don't want to be outgunned. If you want a 15+1 with the ability to accept all the way up to 33+1 round magazines, although you're going to have a little bit of a dangle if you decide to do that. The Glock 19 is perhaps the most popular 9mm handgun ever made, utterly reliable, lightweight, reasonably lightweight for its size, and virtually rust-proof. That and it's, again, bulletproof reliability, and you're talking about a fantastic concealed carry gun. But you also have a lot of third-party options available for the Glock 19 because it's been out for so long. You want new sights, you don't like the trigger, you don't like the controls. I think, literally, guys, and I mean this, I think you could completely build a Glock 19 at this point from third-party parts. You can even swap out frames if you want to. You have companies like Lone Wolf out there and Polymer 80 making Glock 19 or Glock frames. So whatever size you want, whatever barrel, whatever trigger, you name it. The part, forget about it, replace it. You don't like it, screw it, replace it, get something else. Now, a lot of the haters are out there chuckling their fat asses off because Glock perfection, right? If it's so perfect, what do you need to change anything? Well, I would argue you don't need to change anything. There are a lot of people out there, especially police agencies, that use their Glocks in the stock configuration and they're fine with it. It isn't about making it perfect or making the ideal gun. Everybody's definition of what's ideal varies from everybody else's. So while there are some people out there who think, oh man, I don't want a 5.5-pound trigger in a factory gun, that's way too light. I'm gonna shoot my dong off whenever I go to pull it from appendix. So I want to put the New York trigger on there, the 10-pounder. You're also going to have people saying, look, 5.5 pounds, this crunchy, spongy trigger. I really don't like the trigger myself that much out of the box, but you know what? It's pretty easy to get a replacement. If only you just add a connector that costs like $3.50, drop that in there and you'll have a lot smoother trigger pull. The point is, you can make it yours. The Glock 19 gives you the option to have a lot of capacity while still being compact enough to carry. I consider this, at least from my personal perspective, the upper limit of what you can comfortably carry concealed. Now, a lot of you bigger guys or you guys in you colder climates, I know you're going to heartily disagree, and that's fine. Guys, this is a low risk pick. I know a lot of you out there are going to be upset about it, but even more of you are going to be happy and agree with that pick. But I'm also going with the Gen 5. You see, the Gen 5 wasn't out when I made this video 3 years ago, and I like the Gen 5 improvements. I like the Glock Marksman barrel that they've added on there. They guarantee a 4-inch group at 50 yards. Guys, I've seen them testing these guns under the basement at Smyrna, and if they don't meet the spec, they toss them out. I like the new RTF texture that they introduced with the Gen 4, but I like the omission of the finger grooves with the Gen 5. And speaking of the Gen 4, I really like the Gen 4 magazine release that carried over to the Gen 5, but you also have the addition of an ambidextrous slide release, which is going to be important to a lot of people. But my favorite upgrade is the factory beveled and flared magazine well that makes magazine changes a lot easier. I've done 2 Glock operator courses with the new Gen 5 Glock 19. I found mag changes to be a lot easier, and I think this is a great improvement, but it also throws off the specs a little bit, because if you look at the Glock's thickness, it comes in at 1.3 inches, but that's not true. The slide is actually 1 inch thick, and then the body starts to get a little bit bigger. I think you're looking at about maybe less than 1.2 inches thick, but the 1.3 inch thick portion is actually the area at the butt of the grip, which is the beveled and flared area. It just adds the slightest amount of width on either side, and that isn't going to affect its concealability, so don't be thrown off by that. Oh man, this top 5 I can already tell is going to be controversial. Number 2, the Sig P365. So what is the Sig P365? Well, the 365 is frankly incredible. It is a 1.5 stack gun from Sig, 9mm, that has a 10+1 capacity, so you get 11 rounds of 9mm, but it's virtually the same size as the Glock 43. Right about the same weight at 18 ounces, right about the same width at 1 inch thick, yet it holds 10+1 versus the Glock 43's 6+1. What you really need to compare it to is the Glock 26, which is 1.26 inches thick, 26% thicker, and 21.5 ounces. So about 3.5 ounces heavier. but it's a 10+1 gun. So the 365 is much smaller than the Glock 26, having the same capacity. You also get night sights out of the factory, and not that bullshit luminescent stuff, but the actual tritium night sights out of the box from the factory. You get forward and rear slide serrations, which is a big complaint about the Glocks. They don't have forward slide serrations. Not a big deal to me, but hey, if you like them, the 365, it's got them. The Glock 43 doesn't have a rail. The 365 has a proprietary rail. So does a proprietary rail suck? Yes, but at least you can buy accessories from Sig if you want a light or a laser module to pop onto the front of your 365. It's nitron coated, which I've seen people scrape nitron with a knife and the coating hasn't come off. Virtually rust proof. You're looking at $500 street, which is very affordable for a gun of this caliber. So not only are you getting better sights out of the box with the 365 versus the competition, so not only are you getting generally better sights than the competition, but you're also getting a much better trigger. I really like the Sig 365 trigger. It's probably the best trigger on these subcompact guns. Possibly better than the Smith & Wesson M&P 2.0 series with a very short, very crisp reset. So I'm wild about the 365, and in fact, the only reason it's number 2, and I know Sig wants to kill me for saying this, but there were some heat treating issues with the firing pins in the earlier runs of the 365. Now, Sig says that affected less than like 0.25% of the guns that were out there, but that has yet to be seen because it's still a pretty new gun. I've mentioned this before. Sig has sent me 1,000 rounds of ammo to run through my early copy 365, and we'll see how it does. But if this gun proves itself, probably in 3 years, I'll be doing the same list, and the 365 may be number 1. But right now, in James J. Reeves' personal opinion, the number 1 concealed carry gun out there is the Glock 43. Again, a lot of controversy. I know a lot of you guys aren't going to agree with that. A lot of people don't like the fact that it's just a 9mm. A lot of people don't like the fact that it's just a 6+1 gun, and I totally understand that. Guys, this is my personal preference. I think all 10 or 11 of these guns that I've had in this list are fantastic, and I think there are other guns that you could make a very strong argument that should be on this list that aren't. A lot of you are going to disagree with the Glock 43, but it was my number 1 3 years ago, and it remains my number 1. Why? Because I trust it and I carry it everywhere. It's so small that it's easy for me to carry, but I don't feel outclassed with 9mm, and I feel like 6+1 rounds, or should I say 7+1, I'll tell you in a second, gives me the advantage that I need, or gives me all the firepower that I would need with a potential confrontation. And the reason why I said 7+1, I mentioned this in the last video when I was talking about the Glock 42. My buddy TB, Taryn Butler, the absolute man, he makes an extension for the Glock 42 and the Glock 43 that's barely larger, barely longer than the factory base plate, but it gives you an extra round and it's 100% reliable. So I really see these as 7+1 guns. They're 18 ounces, they're less than an inch thick, very easy to carry, utterly reliable. Guys, I can't emphasize that enough. That is so important to me, to have that Glock reliability by your side and for it to be rust proof. I sweat a lot. I sweat a lot down here in the South. I jog with my gun sometimes. It's hot, it's humid, there's salt water around everywhere. I've never had a problem with any Glock rusting with the Tennifer finish. But for me, it's reliable, and I'm willing to take it with me anywhere. It works with anything that I'm wearing at any time. A lot of shorts and t-shirts works for me. I can clip it in my waistband if I really had to, and for that reason, for me, personally, the Glock 43 is number 1, but you guys probably have some strong arguments out there for your own personal number 1. Anyway, sorry not sorry, 1911 guys, not on here. The High Point C9 was a contender, close contender. Just kidding. I love you guys at High Point, but I would never conceal carry one of those things. They were like bricks. Guys, the landscaping team is here in the park, and I hear leaf blowers, which means it's time for me to get the F out of here. I hope you enjoyed this list. Thanks a ton to Ventura Munitions. They've been around for forever with us, supported us virtually since day one. Go support them. Buy some stuff from Ventura Munitions. I really like the quarter cases of ammo. We've also got Blue Alpha Gear supporting us. If you want to sign up to win a Blue Alpha Gear belt, just go to patreon.com TFBTV. We give away 2 a month. Speaking of giveaways, guys, we're giving away a gun every month now. For December, we're giving away an H&K VP9B. That's the HK VP9 with the button mag release. Just go to tfbtv.gun.team to sign up. Guys, I really appreciate you watching. You are the most important thing to this channel. We wouldn't be here if it weren't for you. I hope you enjoyed this list. See you next week.